And thanks for joining us here on PM Express. You may have noticed, but if you haven't, I need to bring it to your attention because there is unrest on the Labour front. But it's not surprising, is it? Because we have just some 72 days to go before the general elections. And there is this phenomenon that we are beginning to see every election year. It empowers organized Labour to demand for more. A lot of things that had dragged and stalled, Labour is convinced that if you choose your time appropriately, especially if you're in an election year, ideally if you have a few days to go before an election, such as we have it right now, you can get the political authority, the politicians with the power, the government, to act even more swiftly than they will if it is not an election year. And so this phenomenon has been playing out over the last few elections, and we'll show you the evidence to back this. But it has been a barrage of strikes being called all over the place. 5 of them, 5 unions already currently on strike, 3 waiting in the wings to also go on strike. And the timing is everything, because government is afraid that if you do not heed their call and meet the demands, you will possibly lose elections, because of course you have a very angry Labour force, and they are huge in terms of their numbers. Now, just look at the sheer number of Labour unions currently on strike. Senior Staff Association, September 16th, they went on strike. NCC staff, September 18th, you have the university administrators, for which reason we are now learning there is a real possibility that the universities will have to shut down indefinitely if this is not resolved immediately. Some of the universities were supposed to have reopened. They have now extended their reopening date. They're not quite sure when that will happen because of the strike. So it's already taking a bit of a toll on the universities across the country. We have FUSAG already on strike. They started on the 18th of September. Then we have TEU, the Teachers and Education Workers Union, also on strike. And then you have, as I said, 3 unions waiting in the wings to also go on strike. We have the Mortuary Workers Association, we have TUSAC, and we have CTAC. All of them now telling us that they want to also go on strike. And they've said the dates already, 26th, is very close around the corner. In fact, this is tomorrow we are talking about for the Mortuary Workers Association. We'll hear them on this and why they're going on strike and what will change this outcome. And as you know, if they go on strike, it poses a significant health risk, and we'll see what government plans to do about that. And then you have on Friday, you have TUSAC that is also planning to go on strike, and then Monday you have CTAC. So this has been lined up, and the Labour unions have chosen their time and have chosen the moment to ask government to give them what they believe they deserve, because the government knows that if you do not comply, you are facing a challenge on December 7th. But government is also looking at these numbers. Government knows that as far as the compensation is concerned and its effect on the economy is quite significant. We're talking about 63.68 billion in the 2024 budget alone. If you come to the mid-year budget review, that is 63.68 billion. And that is, in essence, something that hasn't changed from what was projected in 2020 in the 2024 budget to what we saw in the mid-year budget. It hasn't changed, but it's significant because of its percentage when it comes to its burden it's placing on the government and its expenditure, because we're talking about some 36% of the revenue that this country is raking in is going into paying compensation for workers. So government is looking at this and must look at this in making a decision, right? And if you look at the trends, it's not been consistent. The higher we saw in 2020, it was 51%. In other words, every amount that this country is making in terms of revenue, at that time, 51% of that will be paying. We use that to pay the compensation for workers. If you come to currently in 2024, we are talking about some 36%. So 36% of whatever we're making as a country, the revenues that are coming in, including the taxes and all, 36% of that has gone into paying, as you know, salary. So government has to look at this and make a decision whether they are in a position to meet all the demands that organized labor is placing before it. So if you are in government right now, you are between a rock and a hard place, because you know the economy is in a bad place already. If you commit and if you do something about this projection, this amount that you've budgeted for, 63 billion, will be exceeded, and that will have an impact on the economy and our ability, indeed, to sustain a very fragile economic base. So government needs to make that calculation, but there are political risks. And governments before now have experienced it. Let's go to 2012, before the elections. You have 6 labor unions on strike. The highest we saw in the last 2 elections was 2016, when 14 labor unions all declared strike months before the elections. And the president had to act at some point. And John Mahama then was forced to make a very now infamous pronouncement because he was under pressure. In 2020, the last election, there were 8 labor unions on strike. As we speak right now, with just over 70 days to go before elections, we have 5 labor unions on strike, 3 more waiting to go on strike, and from everything else that we know, they will go on strike. And that will bring the number back to 8, by the way, same as we had it in 2020. So it is not coincidence that the labor unions choose to do this and to demand what they deserve and what they know. In many cases, as you saw in the previous slide, they have negotiated, but government hasn't implemented, that if you really want to have some peace of mind to prosecute an election as an incumbent government, then you better pay. You better do what the workers are demanding. And no wonder for John Mahama in 2020, as I showed you there, 14 labor unions on strike. He was forced to make the declaration that he has a dead goat syndrome. And that's one thing that has haunted him for years. That comment was made because he had to deal with all the organized labor. He had to do with organized labor and all the labor unions that were asking for more, and he could not give more. And he's been speaking about this recently, talking about how he was frustrated at the time having to deal with these 14 labor unions when he knew he had an election to prosecute. Do you remember the outcome here in elections? He lost. It was a monumental defeat for him then. In terms of our fourth Republican history, for the history of this country, we haven't seen that margin of defeat for any presidential candidate on the ticket of the 2 main political parties, let more an incumbent president. That's what happened to him there. And you cannot discount the impact this had on that particular outcome. When he had to make this pronouncement at the time, they had a dead goat syndrome. And this government is now facing those same prospects. How will they handle that? We're going to be bringing the labor unions together for a conversation on this. We'll look at the substantive matters that they are asking government to tackle. Some of them have been outstanding for years indeed, and they believe this is the time to exact some answers and intervention from the government of the day. Stay with me. After this, we'll have a conversation. And thank you very much for staying with us here on PM Express. It's always brought to you by Syntex Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. No matter your water needs, they have it all. Call them on 0244 335 168, and you can also find them across the country because they have 7 years warranty. You can also shop online at syntexgh.com, and I also recommend to you Academic Times newspaper. It is a newspaper that is focusing on the publications that you may have missed when it comes to the research in the universities across the country, and they are putting this together so you find the data and the research that would ordinarily will be gathering dust on the shelf. The Academic Times would pick up on that, so we can all be exposed to the great work that has been done across the universities, the length and breadth of this country. And I always say to you that you want to find us on TuneIn also, because the myjoyonline.com, of course, has the live link there to listen into the Joy 99.7 FM. But we're back on TuneIn too. You want to find us there. Joining me right now for a conversation is Salamatu Mahama Brima. He's a national chairperson of the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, at TUC. Austin Gama is a labor consultant. He's been there before, seen it all. Richard Kofi Jordan is the General Secretary of the Mortuary Workers Association of Ghana. He's just coming out of a meeting with the Ministry of Health and the Finance Ministry. We'll get some clarity on what they decided on the back of that, because they had said that they were going to go on strike tomorrow. Professor Ransford Jampo is a political science scientist, University of Ghana, but he is also the leader of UTAG at University of Ghana. He's the president, actually, of the University Teachers Association. So he comes to this conversation with a very unique perspective indeed. Dr. Cynthia Senna Beglo is Executive Secretary of the Vice Chancellor's Ghana, and they are dealing with a crisis at the point because of the unrest that the tertiary level is experiencing because of all the strikes that I've just told you about that they are having to deal with. And I want to start with Tewu. I wanted to understand, really, from all the associations and the unions in question, what are the core issues for them? And let me start with you, Salamatu, if you don't mind. For you, what are the key issues for Tewu? Why are you on strike? Hello, Salamatu? Okay, we don't seem to have Salamatu. Do we have Salamatu? Okay, we'll get that sorted very quickly. But in the studio with me is Richard. And Richard, you just returned from a meeting.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes. Yes, okay. Thankfully, we have Salamatu joining us right now. And thank you for joining us. I wanted to understand what the issues are for Tewu.
Good day.
Okay, let's take some time to resolve that challenge with the audio, with Salamatu. I'll come back to her. But for the Mortuary Workers Association, you were in a meeting. You had planned to go on strike tomorrow. Is that strike coming up?
It is coming up.
Okay. What was the outcome of the meeting?
Well, I think that the meeting was initiated by Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. And at the meeting, Ministry of Health was represented. But you see, the main implementers, Ghana Health Service, CHAC, and the rest were not present. Meanwhile, they are the actual implementers.
Well, what are your issues, though?
Our issues
If you can bullet them for me.
It has to do, number one, with our PPEs,
Okay.
which is non-negotiable. We should have them. But currently, we don't have them adequately, and it is affecting the work we do.
Okay.
Number two has to do with some salaries arrears, which has been dictated back 2020. We've been battling with the Ministry of Health and other agencies for some time now because of that salary arrears. Number three has to do with some financial clearance that we're seeking to have more mortuary workers to join us because of the workload and the fewer people doing it. The last one has to do with the coronavirus bonus that the president promised years back for frontline health workers, which mortuary workers were exempted. So these are the four key issues that we are dealing with currently for this particular strike action.
Okay, and when you met the authorities today, I believe you met the
we met
health ministry?
We met Fair Wages, Health, Finance was there, and then one representative from Teaching Hospital Holt.
Did they commit to fix the problems for you?
Well, it has always been the same story. This time round, they are saying we should give them to close of November, which I think, having spoken to some leadership, we are not going to allow that. They have just come out with their points as to how they think they can solve the problem. For instance, if you look at number one, which has to do with the PPEs, they say the ministry, the mortuary and funeral facility, which is MOFA, the regulator and the Ministry of Health should direct immediately the provision of those PPEs. I think PPEs is a continuous thing. You have to keep providing until while the work go on, so that way I don't have a problem. But Fair Wages will work together with MOFA to get labor to conduct labor inspections and all that. All these things are things that we've spoken over so many years. It's not today. We have negotiated, we have agreed. What are you going to do with now you're going to tell labor department to do labor inspections and all that? The problems are there. We know we don't have PPs, we don't have PPs. If the mortuary is bad, the mortuary is bad. Simple as that. So that is their point. The next one has to do Ministry of Health and right to minister to seek replacement for separate. These things, we have brought it on board for some years now. It is not now that we have declared strike action. Now you want to write it. It's the same thing they will do. They write the letter, keep it for some years, they push it there and never works.
Okay.
And so all these things, everything we are asking for is just about telling us, oh, we intend to do it this way. We'll write to them, we'll follow up, and there's no solution.
So tomorrow you're going on strike?
We are
across the country, all mortuary workers
all mortuaries in this country, I'm directing them now. I've done so. But we are going to close all mortuaries tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Stay with me. I want to get the perspective from Tewu. They're already on strike. Salamatu, let's try again. Hopefully we can hear you and you can hear us. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Great. So what's the issue with Tewu?
Yes, so we have 3 issues. So one of the issues has to do with enhancement on our vehicle maintenance allowance. And the vehicle maintenance allowance includes motorbikes, bicycles, and then cars. So what is staff who use all these means, these vehicles to and from work. We negotiated with fair wages in June last year. And then we got an enhancement on those allowances, including our off-campus allowance. And the enhancements has remained on paper. It has not reflected. We have written several letters to our regulator, GTEC, but today the enhancement is not reflecting in our pocket. The second issue has to do with our guest focus. You have told that of it to retire. And when we retire, we are supposed to take our lump sum from that to contribution. Now, from January 2024 to date, government has deducted the TN2 contribution from our salary, but has not remitted the contribution to our permanent invest. So that when we retire, we can get straight our contribution to enhance health. The third issue has to do with accumulated interest on our TPFA. You know, when the monies were kept with Bank of Ghana before they were put to our schemes, our various schemes, it accrued some interest. And government is supposed to work the interest, the MPR regulations, and then pay it to us. That interest accrued on delay payment. And that interest is also not forthcoming. So these are our issues.
Yeah, I want to see if that's the same we've had with others too. Ransford Jampo will join me pretty shortly. We'll also talk to Dr. Cynthia Beglo to get a sense of that too. And Salamatu, I guess I should stay with you on the subjects, on the issues you've just raised. I know you're on strike. Have you had any assurances that it will be dealt with?
No, so far it's only the Labour Commission that called us on the phone and asked that we should resume work, we should call off the strike. But then we said it's not right. If you know we have an issue, then you instruct the authorities that day to sit down with us and then discuss, and we see the way forward. But if you say, yes, we have an issue, but we should resume, that is not right.
And I get a sense that your issues are very similar to what we've heard from the Senior Staff Association, the University Administrators, and FUSA, correct?
Very correct. In actual fact, the 3 of us, had a negotiation on the same day. It was a joint negotiation, and we even signed an undertaking that henceforth these 3 groups will be negotiating together. So we have signed. The rates have been agreed upon. We have signed, and that has remained on paper.
How long has it been?
From June to date.
Okay. Let's bring in Dr. Cynthia Beglo. She is the Executive Secretary, Vice Chancellor's Ghana, and they are bearing the brunt of this because they obviously are responsible for the universities across the country. Many of them were scheduled to reopen, but as we've been hearing tonight, some of the universities are now having to postpone reopening. Dr. Kpegulu, tell me, what's the current situation with the universities across the country, considering the strike that you're having to deal with?
Thank you, Evans. As I mentioned this afternoon in our conversation, I indicated that actually the university's calendar had already been disrupted, given the COVID and all the other issues. What we've been trying to do is to gain the momentum again. You know, schools will reopen normally in August, September, and then the second semester will commence in the following year. But because of the disruptions, it's obvious that the academic calendar is not following the pattern. And universities had been working very hard to bridge the gap. But with this new development, it means that we have just completely gone away. It's not going to happen as we had thought. So once the academic calendar disrupts, it means that students' teaching and learning time is either less, or that they don't have the full complement of the number of weeks needed to complete a certain curriculum at a certain time. And all these things are structured. But once we have these disruptions, it means that when universities have to come to, when the strikes are over, the universities have to try to do extra to try to get the curriculum concluded, but most of the time it may even be truncated. So you get graduates graduating and they haven't had the full complement of whatever they are studying, all the topics or what they have to study. So this is something that is bothering all of us, and VCG is making the effort to make sure that we find some solution to these strike actions.
I mean, ordinarily, what was the plan in terms of the reopening? Were you supposed to reopen this week?
Some universities were going to reopen we're in September, I guess, and October thereabout. But many will also have reopened sometime in January. Their first years will probably have come in January.
Okay.
Continuing students for some universities, the continuing students would have come in at this time.
So for those universities, what are they having to do now with the strike on?
We have scheduled some meetings to be able to get some information and see the way forward. So conclusively, I can't give you for sure what is happening, but once some universities have decided that they can't reopen it at the scheduled dates and they are giving notification, it's only natural that the rest of the universities will follow suit. And so that's the question.
And we've seen the University of Ghana do so. I believe the University of Cape Coast too has also written to the students to say you have to stay home a bit.
Of Education, whenever is following, and a couple more probably will
is it fair? Can the university, because yourself you are in that space, can the universities function without TEWU, FUSAG, and all the other?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You can't study in a dirty classroom if your washrooms are not clean. Students come all day, be at their lecture spaces all day. The lecture rooms may not even be opened. The washrooms will not be clean. The classroom will not be clean. These unions, the members of these constituents are in charge of utility services, sanitation, and all those things. And if they are not there, you can't manage unless maybe you want to outsource at a very high cost to you. But it's not going to be an easy thing. It will be hard for a university to decide to operate without this category of people who provide essential services for teaching and learning to occur.
I mean, listen to Salamatu talking for the TEWU. They don't appear to have a roadmap as to when this will be resolved, and so they're going to remain on strike. If that is the case, what does that mean for the universities? Are you also going to remain closed indefinitely?
No. Well, we hope that they will come out of that situation where they don't have a roadmap. When these things happen, there are many ways of coming around the table to resolve the issues. And we have started that process. as parents of these unions, what we do normally is to organize and schedule meetings, and we go with dialogue and diplomacy and more dialogue, so that people will be able to understand the situation and probably know the bottlenecks surrounding why a need has not been met, etc., etc. So I'm hoping that that situation does not arise. VCG will aid the process of having a roadmap so that we will work towards the conclusion and make sure that the strike doesn't prolong unnecessarily.
But do you even have the mandate to deal with this, considering that what you're asking for comes down to the ability to pay? I mean, I believe
Yes.
the Vice Chancellor's Ghana will not have the resources to do so. Government does.
Invariably so. It's not our, the funding and paying emoluments is not our function. That's not what we do. But as parents of these unions, what we do is to negotiate or facilitate the process of meeting with the various agencies that are in a position to meet these needs or to come to some arrangement and agreement to be able to curtail the strikes. So that's what I mean. We don't have the resources or finances to say pay this, and of course it's government that pays emolument. What we do is to get together quickly and try to bring the parties to the table and see what is possible and what is not. Over the years, when such the unions threaten strike actions, when we get a hang of it and we understand the issues and we have a full scope of what is leading to the strike, we have countless times have meetings with the Minister of Education. We have a joint meeting of Ministry of Employment and Labour, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education, GTech, the regulators, and then we sit down at the table and discuss what is possible. That's why I'm saying that over the years we have used diplomacy and conferencing and making sure that we all understand the situation and find solutions.
Thank you. Please stay with me, because I wanted to understand for these universities, how long before you are now compelled to declare that you have to close them indefinitely? We'll come to that. Just to understand that for parents who are planning on bringing their kids to school, that can give them a bit of a roadmap to plan their own lives around that. But let me come back to you, Richard. Richard, so we've been talking about your desire to go on strike tomorrow. So you're going on strike tomorrow, nonetheless, which is tomorrow morning. Why now, though? I mean, the issues that you raised, some of them dates back to the COVID time.
Yes.
Right? Why now? There's a sense, as I illustrated, that as labor unions and associations representing workers, you've chosen this time because, you have 72 days on election, and this is where to get government to respond to you.
Well, it could be a factor.
You are the leader. Is it a factor?
It could be the factor. It could be one of the factors. But the truth is that last year, November, we did the same. Just that they failed on their parts. We did same in November. They promised they were going to resolve them by 29th of December 2023, and they didn't do. In February, we notified them, telling them that this year is not going to be a joke. We will have to take what we have to take. We should not be getting to where we are now. It is because they have failed on their part to honor their own promise. So it is not our fault that we're choosing September ending or whatever time to strike. Okay. In fact, strategically, it's good for us.
What is the strategy there?
People who are going to benefit.
What is the strategic advantage there?
The advantage is that it's going to get to an ending. We know how many people are going to get buried. We know what is going to happen by close of this week and next week. And so it's good timing for us. Okay.
But good timing for you also because you know that there is an election around the corner.
The election does not affect. At some mortuary, election does not affect mortuaries. At any time we close mortuary.
Yeah, but you make the point about the timing of this particular strike.
The ending of September.
If people begin to complain tomorrow because the mortuaries are shut, that will put pressure on the government, and the government wants to win elections. And
of course, government wants to win elections
to address your needs.
If you kept an issue for 4 years, deliberately keeping them for 4 years, you don't expect us to wait for you to lose election or win election. We have to take it now.
I mean, Salama, to keeping them honest, in taking the decision to strike, was the election period a factor?
Not at all.
it didn't even cross your mind that if you do it now, you're more likely to get a reaction from government?
No. You see, we are unionists, and we open a wage opener clause as and when. You see, so we are not politicians, and we don't target this. Clearly, everyone that prices of what call it spare parts have gone up. Spare parts prices have gone up outrageously, and so we began our negotiation. We even sent the proposals last year, but we had the opportunity of negotiating this year. So the question is, if the fair wages didn't have a mandate from government, why did he at all sit down to negotiate with us and agreed on rates? And now payment of those rates have become difficult. You see, so our target is now we are looking at the economic trend in the country, the prices of spare parts, because of late when you send your vehicle to the mechanics workshop, the cost has gone up. We are unable to pay. And these are the vehicles that facilitate our movement to and from work. And it's the conditions of service provision. Okay, that is just one of them. Again, the critical issue has to do with the Tier 2 deductions. You take your pay slip, the deductions have been made. Yes, the deductions are not going to the farm manager to invest to our benefit. So these are the challenges. We did not target elections at all.
Let me bring in Austin Game, who's been a minister before. He understands how these things operate. He's also a labor consultant now. Mr. Austin Game, is it a coincidence that if you track back to 2012, every election year we have labor unrest? In 2016, we had 14 labor unions embark on a strike. It forced the then president to say that he has a death go syndrome. He lost elections. 2020, we saw what happened. 8 labor unions were on strike. This year, if you now add the mortuary workers and the 2 others who are also saying they're going to go on strike, by Monday you have 8 on strike already with 72 days to go before the elections. Is it a coincidence that we see that happening every election year?
Thank you, Evans, and thank you. It may not be exactly so. Condition of service is a condition of service. It's expected that the employer will be honest, particularly now skills have developed, people have gained knowledge, people understand negotiation mechanisms, and therefore people are not as porous as it used to be. Knowledge has, expanded. So people expect that the employer will be honest and honor its obligations. If you are going to negotiate and you will be paying for this condition of service, then obviously you should have budgeted for it. You should know that those that you are negotiating and how much its impact will be on your budget. The mandatory ones, such as Social Security and that of the second tier, like Salah said, clearly, if you don't honor it, then you don't deserve to be an employer because you are supposed to pay it. Now, those days, it was new things that were being asked. Some people, were forced to yield to the request of the people. Again, like you rightly said, could be that let's honor the obligation. We may not have the money to pay it. We can renegotiate and have a payment plan, but it does seem as if even ability to have meetings is becoming burdensome on the part of the employer now. Most of the people who are supposed to be negotiating have jumped into the bush to campaign, and they are not available.
Yeah.
So Fair Wages and Salaries Commission do not have mandate to negotiate and to schedule payment plan. The Ministry of Finance may have that authority, but where is the minister? What are the other deputies? Each and every one of them appears to be a member of parliament. So certainly you can think, as everybody else, they are in the bush now campaigning, and so they are not there. The Minister of Employment may not be there. The deputy may be there. Whether he has the capacity and the authority to sanction anything is another thing. So they have to devise other means to be able to get the people to appreciate the circumstance in which they find themselves. For now, it's really burdensome. Example, the case of that of the mortuary people is very serious. The point is that PPE matters are non-negotiable. What is the work of the Labor Inspection Division of the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations under the Labor Department? They are supposed to be doing this thing without anybody directing them as to what to do, and order that it should be done. PPEs are not things that should be joked with at all. So I share the burden with them. However, here we are confronted with the situation, and we must find a solution.
Yeah, I mean, but that is really where the challenge is, find a solution, but it all boils down to government's ability to pay. And considering where they are now, with a few, say, just over 2 months to an election, right? Is it a prudent thing to do now for government to say, we're going to find the money somehow to cater for this? The approach in the past, at least in 2016, you had a president who says, well, to hell with it. We don't have the resources to pay. And I am going to stand my ground, because you, in essence, felt that he was being unfairly dealt with by organized labor. Yeah, he lost elections quite significantly. What's your expectation of the government now?
Oh, certainly already the country is choked with terrible mismanagement, and therefore we have a haircut on our hands. We have a situation where the economic circumstance is not because the colleagues are talking about it, but it's real. It's staring at our faces. A lot more promises and negotiations are ongoing. Let me tell you this. There are many labor unions that have similar grievances. If they all want to go on strike, you have about 20 people on strike.
Yeah.
20 different unions on strike. So clearly it is not, the 2016 matter is a child play. Today is more horrifying and is just not accepted. Now, especially so, the mandatory ones, people are going to go on retirement shortly among the people who are on strike now. Therefore, they are mindful and concerned about that as leaders. And if your members, I form part of the team that wrote the pension scheme. The pension scheme is as such that we no longer have a kind of the organizations or institutions paying anything to you. It is totally now the second tier, which is the lump sum for you, and it has to be paid, invested, and yielding something, so that the return of the investments would flow to the people who are due. But they are going to go now with empty hand. Now, the other dangerous thing, and let me say it at once, is that when it's time for election, there is no guarantee, particularly now, there will definitely be a certain change of government. Whether a new government or a continuation is also a change. If it's even Alhaji Bawumia who is going to win election, it's still a change. And so the people want guarantee that when there is this transition, that Alhaji Bawumia or John Mahama or Alan Chiramanti will not tell them, I have just come to office, so give me chance. They have no guarantee, they have no assurance for another 3 months, 6 months to be waiting. They cannot bear it. That is the reason why they may say that it may not be election, but obviously they have that at the uppermost part of their minds as well. They are human beings.
Yeah, of course. And as you know, governments have always been compelled to act in these matters, except that in the case of TEU and others, they still haven't got clarity on when the resolution will come. And I want to stay with that subject because there is now an issue that may crop up with the management of the universities. Dr. Cynthia Kpeglo, how long before you'll be compelled to shut down your universities indefinitely if this is not resolved?
I wouldn't be too quick to answer that question. Some of the universities are already on vacation, so except those that are doing their summer school sandwich and all those things. But if some schools do not have students in, then they may want to stretch it a little to see if we can find solutions so that they can reopen school. But when school is actively in session and there's a strike, even after 1 week, the universities can shut down because you don't want to keep full-blooded team, young men and women on campus doing nothing and just, idling in the hall. The devil always finds work for the idle hand. So the universities will probably just want to say that, look, students may go home and then when the issues are resolved, they come. But now many institutions do not yet have their students fully in session. So we have a little respite or window to be able to do the negotiations or, meetings quickly to see what the outcome can. Otherwise, universities have a mandate to close.
But already some of the universities were supposed to reopen already have extended it and have postponed it literally almost indefinitely, waiting to see if there's some closure to the issues around the strike before they then reopen. That you've already painted a picture of how challenging that then is because it then affects academic calendar. You have to make a decision at some point to reopen, right? And so for those institutions that have decided to postpone, how long before they can no longer keep the schools closed?
How before they can keep the schools closed if they are not going to get the people that will provide the support services.
But then that then affects the academic calendar, right? Because the longer you keep the school closed and you don't get the schools reopened, it pushes this even further into next year.
Yes, it's an unavoidable situation. I think that's where we are now. There isn't anything to do except to ensure that we resolve this matter for schools to reopen. If not, it means that the academic calendar will be further disrupted. I mean, that's the end result of it.
I mean, we're talking... Yes, disrupting. We're talking about universities, but with the situation with the mortuary workers is even more pronounced because that has an impact on health. Right? Yes, of course. It's such a health risk that if all of you decide that tomorrow you're closing the mortuaries, or you simply not go to work. Are you closing or simply not go to work and leave? We are custodians. So you close the mortuaries. All publicly run mortuaries across the country will be closed.
Private who are solidarizing with us.
Okay, so you have private mortuary workers who are solidarizing with you who also not go to work tomorrow. Exactly. Okay, but that definitely will have significant health consequences for the public.
Somebody should be held responsible.
How long do you plan to do this?
Indefinite.
Indefinitely? Yep. But you met, and I thought that was going to... There's an agreement that has been signed with the Ministry of Health.
We signed the agreement. Fair wages... Ministry of Health, HR, the whole teaching hospital, and Chief Director Mufa.
Yeah. Isn't that enough?
No.
That's a commitment.
It is not.
Okay.
We do not have financial mandates.
Okay. Who do you want to sign it?
We want to see finance and co who are actually having that power to pay. You see, this type of agreement, we've had some before. Since 2020, we'll be having similar instructions and agreements, but it's never getting implemented.
So you're saying that tomorrow, I cannot deposit the body of my loved one in any public mortuary across the country.
Maybe the police station will be there to keep it for you.
And you cannot also go to take your loved one's body out, the remains of the loved one.
Not at all.
You cannot.
You cannot. Even if you are paid on Friday, you cannot take.
Is it Friday? It's not tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday.
Well, many people do paperwork tomorrow.
Okay, but your strike is Thursday.
Starting tomorrow.
Thursday.
Thursday.
So tomorrow morning, you cannot deposit the remains of your loved one in any public mortuary across the country.
You cannot.
And you cannot also withdraw the remains of your loved one.
You cannot do so.
But that can be devastating indeed.
It is going to be devastating.
Okay. And when you met the government, you told them this. I'm pretty sure they are aware of this. And that is
They
why
know,
you made
they
the
know.
commitment.
Unfortunately, this is it. Most of the, for instance, if you go to Ministry of Health, from the minister to the chief director, they are outside. Finance is the same. Almost every, they are with the United Nations Assembly, what. So this is where we are. I mean, it has to happen.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm grateful. Salamatu, I'm grateful. Doc, thank you. And, of course, Ms. Osingame, thank you too for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening.